Hi, welcome to D-ConneXion TV. I'm Donzale Powell with D-ConneX LLC. And today we actually have a nonprofit that we're going to discuss, which is Dream Center West with TJ Fletcher. So, TJ, if you could just kind of introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm the executive director at the West Nashville Dream Center. I have three boys, and my husband's from California. I'm from Canada. We live here. We've been here for about 10 years. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's start with let's give our viewers a little background information about how the Dream Center came about and some information about what the Dream Center does.
Yeah. So our mission is to protect and empower people living in distress. About 8 years ago, a local church in town, Cross Point, was moving their locations, and they felt that they had made an impact in that area of town. And so even though they were moving, they wanted to leave some type of presence there. So they created this idea that's been done actually all over the country, but they decided to plant a dream center. And it's kind of the way they kind of explained it was that it's kind of a deconstructed church essentially. So it's more about meeting the needs of the community. About 4 years ago, we became our own nonprofit and have had the ability to grow pretty exponentially since then because we're able to divert all of our resources right back into the community.
Well, I loved it. I remember when I first came into the center and you were able to kind of show me around
Mm-hmm.
and explain a little of some of the things that you all do.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, the whole community needs to know about
Mm-hmm.
this. And I love that it is so service driven.
Mm-hmm.
And you also talked about volunteers and things like that. So we can
Mm-hmm.
definitely talk about that in just a little while. But I just love the thought of really trying to impact in the major way of what's essential is really what it boils down to. Like,
Yeah.
what are the basic needs? Like, what do they need right away? So
Yeah.
I love that. So if you can describe a little bit more about some of the services or programs that you do. Are there qualifications? Just kind of walk us through. You can take your time, walk us
Yeah.
through what that looks like.
Yeah. It's definitely changed over the years, but
Okay.
one of our core values is that everything that we do comes back to our mission, and it's to
Mhm.
protect and empower people that are in distress. And you find people in distress in all types of situations. And we kind of explain it with this diagram that's kind of, most people have their circles. You have your inner circle, your outer circle, and then even an outer circle beyond that. And that's everything from your family, your spouse, your children, people that you're close to your job, your social network, maybe your church, maybe your friends, and then the outer circle, most people have little control over that. That is based on how you've grown up, your who your parents were. It's based on your race. It's based on economics that have affected your family, and that is going to be government, education, those types of things that are out there.
Mhm.
And so, what we have found is that people that are in distress, those circles are often broken and they're all kind of jumbled. And so sometimes, if you're in your inner circle doesn't have a safe person there, you have to reach out to your outer circle. So maybe you're reaching out to your church, or maybe you're reaching out to your job, and then maybe that's all jumbled too. And so
Right.
then you have to start reaching out to that outer circle. Now, if that outer circle, you don't have any control over it, you don't also have any relationship with it. And so what we found was just a really unique niche in where we could come alongside people, not as a service, not as a government entity, not even as a church, even though we are faith based.
Mhm.
We come alongside people as a family. And so we kind of insert ourselves in those broken pieces as glue. And so we take up the space that there should have been something else there. And so that could be, one of our largest demographics we serve are single mothers. They are, in my opinion, the most underrepresented people group in America. And if you add on top of that, single mothers of color, they're making less money. They're often raising kids that are not even their own. They might be raising nephews or nieces or grandchildren. And there's a huge gap in men in their lives. And so they're trying to do all of this alone. They're trying to educate their kids. And you throw in a pandemic and they're trying to work and educate their kids and do all of these things. And they're just getting completely missed. And there's unfortunately a huge education problem that they're not getting the education they need to be able to provide for their families.
Right.
So that's an area where we come alongside of people and we start supporting the kids and the teenagers and the moms. And maybe there's a grandma in the situation that we can support. And we do that like a close family member would, as opposed to a program. You know, one of the things that we have found that allows us to protect people is our fresh food bank. So we give out roughly 10,000 pounds of food a month, of fresh food, and that goes out to our community. People don't have to come to us. We actually go to them. We deliver it in a food truck. They get fresh groceries, and that eliminates a huge need that often creates really strong economic instability in a family. If you're taking care of 3, 4, or 5 kids, a good portion of your budget is going to food. And so we can come in and fill that need. And then through that, we build relationships, and then we can start to come in and empower in ways that that they truly need to get out of those situations.
Yes, yes, that's wonderful. So tell me just a little bit before we move on from that, about your fresh food. You mentioned that. Are other people doing fresh food, and what were some of the reasons behind why you chose to do fresh food?
It's actually quite specific. There actually are not a lot of food banks that do it the way that we do it, that we have found anyways. We way back when we started a food pantry, we knew it was a food desert. We knew that was a problem. That's kind of all we knew. We kind of went in green. And we just kept having this internal conversation that we kept hearing that sodium intake was a really huge issue in lower income African American neighborhoods, like very specific. And so we kind of had this internal dialogue, like, if our mission is to protect and empower people that are in distress, why are we like contributing to their health concerns? And so we started reaching out to grocery stores and saying, could we come directly to you and harvest the food that they're not going to use and give that out to families? And it took a lot. We had to go through a lot of hoops. We had to get the health department involved in Second Harvest. And we started out with, maybe 50 to 60 people a month. And now we're serving, thousands. And so what we're finding is that if you lift the restrictions off of things and you make it easier to access, people are much more willing to eat healthier and live healthier and be healthier. And there's tons of research on how poor eating habits contribute to poor economics. And there's just a million different things: poor education, poor test scores, all those types of things. And so it's still like a work in progress, especially with the kids. They just want the hot Cheetos and whatever else they can get. But we're working on it. So, yeah.
Yes, I love that. And I've definitely heard stories over the years about, like I said, the food deserts and really almost like the corner store being your grocery store. And just think about the options that are in there that, to me, is not really an option, but you do what you have to do. So I completely understand it. And sometimes just getting either to some place that has the fresh items can be an issue. Also, not even being aware or familiar. How do I even cook some of these items? I'm not used to that. I've never grown up eating this. Like, what do I do with it? And just opening exposure, I guess, to different things and different ways of kind of being able to provide for families. So I love that you all are doing that. Now, I will say, so this next question will kind of dovetail into something else, but kind of describe your connection to people that come in and that are assisted by the center. And in my opinion, I would think that it would be life-changing for you or anyone that's kind of working on a close basis with people like this. So just kind of describe what that's like, your connection.
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of twofold. One, as a child, I was somebody that was helped and supported by multiple different people. I always attribute it to a church, a teacher, and a friend's parents that helped support me and support my dreams and encourage me to be more than my circumstances. And so that's kind of my driving force behind everything that we do. But the other part is that we feel that it's really, really important that people are treated as individuals and they are treated like family. And so when somebody comes in, they don't fill out a form and maybe we call them or we don't. They come in and we find out who they are and what their story is and how they're connected to us. How did they find us? And then we start kind of building a plan and rolling back the layers. An example would be, we have these kids that came into our virtual school. We kind of vaguely knew who they were. They weren't saying very much. And then we noticed that they started coming really early. So we started investigating a little more. And then we noticed that their clothes were really unclean. And so we knew something's going on here. And so we started talking more. We finally found out that mom had lost a whole bunch of hours. She was raising all these kids and she was cut down to 3 hours a week. And so she had to decide between rent or the water bill. And then she had to decide between the water bill and the electric bill. And so they had no electricity, no water, and they were in a situation where it just felt like the walls were kind of climbing in on them. And so they came to the only place that they knew that was safe and warm and dry, and they came to us. And what ended up happening was through that, we were able to finally connect with mom, who we hadn't really before.
Mm-hmm.
And then we set her up with a resource coordinator. We had a fund that people gave to over Christmas. We were able to use that fund to pay the water bill and pay the electric bill. She was so grateful. The kids were grateful. The kids, in turn, became more trusting of us. And now the older ones go to our teen program and they're all in the virtual school. And now the mom is in a place where she doesn't feel like everything's falling apart. And she knows that she has somewhere to go when it's not okay. I think a lot of people have this perception of people who live in poverty or are low income or live in certain neighborhoods that they would give a name to. People have this impression in their mind that they must deserve that, or they must have done something, or they didn't try hard enough. And what we want to, and people internalize that. You'll hear people say things about themselves in their neighborhood, and we're like, no, like, don't talk about yourself like that, because that's not what we see. And so we try right away to get to know the person. And what ends up happening about that is they really truly become like family. When they hurt, we hurt. And there are many lows, and there are many setbacks, and there are many times when we want to bang our head against the wall. But for the most part, we get to see a lot of really raw beauty and see people change in a way that you can't see through a program where everyone gets a number. So, yeah.
Very good. So if you could just describe, you mentioned earlier virtual school. How did that kind of come about, and what does that look like?
So, our mission is to protect and empower people living in distress. And when parents found out that Metro was going to be virtual, they started asking, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, it's an impossible situation. If you have a second grader at home and a high school student and a third grader, just as an example, and you have to work to provide that home for them, what do? Who's going to teach them? I have 2 second graders and I can barely manage it. And I have a supportive husband and a staff that allows me to have grace when I need to take a day. And I have a part-time nanny. Like, I have all those things. And my kids and I are barely making it through this virtual year. Imagine being a single mother, completely responsible for everything, knowing that every penny that comes in has to go towards your resources. Okay. So now you have to decide, do I leave my children home alone so they can school virtually? Or do I cut back on hours and try and get some type of subsidy or whatnot? And I can't tell you how many people have said, like, well, why don't they just claim unemployment, or why don't they do this? Those things that are out there, the resources that are out there to support people, they don't meet the need in this city at this time.
Right.
You cannot live on those things. You cannot live on minimum wage. You cannot live alone, essentially. So when we saw that, we realized that more than ever, that was our mission. We had to do it. So we created a space for kids to come. They come in, they log into their own school. We hired 2 teachers, and then we have volunteers that come, and we just sit with them, help them get through their work, and their moms can go to work and know that their kids are safe and protected, and they won't be in the lost year, as people are calling it.
Yes. So yes, which can set someone back
Mhm.
tremendously when
Yeah.
they already they might have been struggling before when they were
Yeah.
in the class. So by
Yeah.
the time you add a year and you've fallen behind, yes, that can
Yeah.
absolutely be detrimental. So when I came and did my tour,
Yeah.
and one of the things, you look around and you see all these little desks in a space and everything like that. Of course, spread out, socially distanced, but
Yeah.
but when you see all those little desks, and I think for me, when I saw how excited you were when you saw, okay, everybody's now got their name on their desk. So
Mhm.
you got the pencil with the person's name, and just knowing who the kids were,
Yeah.
like that to me alone, like you can just tell, like you
Yeah.
said, it's family. It's
Yeah.
like, can't wait till they get here money. Like those
Yeah.
type of things
Yeah.
are impactful. To the children, obviously, I'm sure it is to you, but also to the whole rest of their family, because I'm sure they
Mhm.
go home talking about, well, I didn't, all of that. You
Yeah.
get it all out
Yeah.
and get to be excited about something. So I think that can definitely be kind of a shining light to a lot of people. So definitely good work with that. So I believe you're able to operate, of course, with many volunteers. We kind of
Mhm.
talked about volunteers just a little bit. So can you tell us about your volunteers? Kind of where do they typically come from? What types of work do they help with, or are there opportunities for others that are interested in volunteering to be able to help?
The answer is yes. It takes about 150 volunteers a week to make our
Wow.
programs work efficiently.
Mhm.
A big portion of that is, I said we get 10,000 pounds of food a month, and we have 2 food trucks. Those have to be, and we're picking up several times a day at different places and then distributing. And then on top of it, the precautions that we have to take now double the time that it takes to do all of this, because we have to do things so specifically.
Right.
And so we need volunteers for that. We need volunteers in the school. We have a teen night. We have a single moms program. We have, in the summer, we do a thing that's called Summer is for Kids. And it's for any kids that are basically that slip through the cracks. So they don't get signed up for Boys and Girls Club or after school care or any of those things. And we go directly to where they live. So they're complexes. We literally set up a camp on a street corner and anybody can come. We don't have any restrictions. That's something that we're very passionate about. People that have struggled and have been in crisis get a lot of no's, and we try to give a lot of yeses.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't sign up. Can my son come? Yes, he can come, and we'll make it work. And we've just gotten really efficient at figuring out. It's kind of a guessing game because we don't know how many people are going to come, but we won't deny anybody. And if if we run out of food because we have too many people coming back, then we'll go get more food. We'll figure that out. So
Yeah, so just trying to move the puzzle pieces and
yes.
make it fit.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, good. So tell me more about the area that you serve. I mean, obviously the name Dream Center West, so
Yeah.
more on the west side of Nashville.
Yeah.
But can you tell us a little bit more about that area? What some of the overall needs are, I guess,
Mhm.
in that community.
So we are in West Nashville. We've been there for 8 years. When we first arrived there, there was a lot of gang violence. There was a lot of shootings. There was a lot of different things. So it was a very unsafe neighborhood. And so we we were there as a safe place for kids to come and be. And we would just have open the doors and have different things, programs and things for kids to come.
Mhm.
And as we got to know the area more, we started to realize that a lot of families that were living there were really living in fear. And a lot of this violence that was happening was actually not coming from within the neighborhood. It was people coming to the neighborhood and fighting. And so we started doing something kind of unique. We started working with what's called the Community Engagement Policing Team.
Mhm.
It's a special unit that actually every department, every precinct in Metro has, and where they work very closely with the community to build trust and build relationship. And so we worked alongside them, started identifying key issues that were happening. And over the course of, I think, 3 years, crime dropped 48%.
Ooh.
We haven't heard, I mean, we never hear gunshots anymore. Kids run and play. And so very early on, we felt that our mission was to be a safe place for people to go. There's nowhere to go get groceries. There's nowhere for kids to hang out. So it was literally groceries and basketball and ice cream and different things like that. And now that the neighborhood is a little bit more established, it's a little bit safer. One of the biggest needs right now is keeping housing affordable. And so when a
Yes.
neighborhood kind of cleans up, it creates an opportunity for people to come in and put their own stamp on the neighborhood. And so we fight really hard to keep homes affordable,
Right.
keep people in their neighborhoods. There's a lot of statistics about kids that are uprooted as a lot. Often, the more times you move, the less likely you'll graduate. So there's things like that are, we've kind of identified as being really important. And then the other thing is that we just want to be a presence. The campaign we used to pay for our new building was anchored. We really felt that we needed to be anchored in the community and always be available for people that were in need. And even during the pandemic and after the tornado, we opened our new building and we thought, well, we're going to be empty now because of all this, but we're full every day. There's always a need and there's always things going on. And we also just started a new location in North Nashville. So we'll also have that location coming up.
Okay,
So,
good.
Yeah.
Yes. So it sounds like a little bit of probably gentrification was going
Yep.
on there,
Yep.
but yeah, so still a need. Just it's kind of changed the look of
Yes.
of the need a little
Yeah.
bit. Okay. And I remember when I did my tour, I was able to see a couple of pieces of jewelry
Yeah.
that you all had, and they looked wonderful, like
Yeah.
very
Actually
cool
have
things.
one on today.
Okay,
So
yes,
there you
I
go.
love that. So can you explain kind of how you utilize the funds
Yeah.
from pieces like that and how people can find them?
Yes. So one of the ways that we are trying to combat the housing crisis, we have 3 steps in which we're doing that. Emergency housing, and then long-term housing, and then home ownership. And the home ownership piece actually started about 5 or 6 years ago in our single moms group. We were having this discussion and they were getting frustrated because I was bringing people in to talk about buying a home and different things. And one of them finally just said, I don't know how you expect us to do this. Like, we can't own homes. Like, that's not. And it came down to there was some really deep systemic beliefs that they had about themselves and about their ability to own property. And there was some deep healing that had to happen. And so I just became determined, and I was like, we've got to figure out a way to help single mothers own a home, because I just don't see any other long-term solution for them to stop being evicted or having to pay too much or not being able to get ahead with anything. And so we started this program with the designer, Deb Dorr, and she designs the jewelry, and then the moms actually complete it. So she designs it, and then they put it all together. And then we sell the jewelry, and then all of that money goes into a fund, and the moms, and we actually have only just kind of launched this. This is kind of a long dream that's finally come to fruition. The 100% of the proceeds go towards a fund that is a matching fund for the moms to buy a home. And so once they get to a place where they've got the right credit and they get approved and they can do all these things, they'll be able to access that money that they earned because they made the jewelry. And that money will help them with down payments and with all the closing costs and different things like that. So, and you can just find it on our website that says there's a whole thing that says I am enough. And the idea I am enough came from a mom that just felt like, being a single mom, that she could never do it all or be it all. And we just kind of got up and surrounded her and told her all the reasons why she could. And then we realized that collectively as moms that we are enough, and we can be there for each other. And so it's just become a theme for our moms. And when they're down, we just remind each other that we are enough. And we often do things where we write out our stories or do photo shoots or different things to encourage them. So
when I say I love everything about this, okay, just everything. So, some people know, some people don't, but I was a teen mom, and it's so funny because everyone has their ups and downs in life. Like, everyone goes through that. You have your ebb and flow. And I can remember, I want to say after I'm not sure if I had finished, I believe I had finished college, and I went and I wanted to get an apartment. I'm like, let me go get an apartment.
Right.
Let me go do it. And I went and they were like, well, you don't have any prior, renters. No, I've been in school my whole life where I lived with my parents, or on the campus. So no, I don't have any priors. And so I left, and at first it was like, oh man, I can't even get an apartment. Like, what? And I turned around, and when I looked, I went and it was able to buy a condo. So it was almost like, I can't rent an apartment, but you allow me to buy and have a mortgage. To me at the time, it didn't make sense. Thankfully, things that ended up, now looking back, I'm super grateful that they
Right.
turned me down. Like
Right.
it was the biggest blessing ever that they said I couldn't even get an
Yeah.
apartment. And of course, rental, the mortgages and the housing was different
Yeah.
then than it
Yeah.
is now. So I understand there's lots of things, but I
Mhm.
also understand there are lots of programs and avenues that can now try
Yeah.
to assist. And I know it's not an overnight thing, but
Yeah.
just like you said, kind of having more of that mindset that it's not a give up and
Mhm.
just give up. It's sometimes it takes time,
Yeah.
but you gotta
Yeah.
kind of keep at it. So I love that you all are empowering them to actually make something, especially with your hands, to
Yeah.
be able to generate some of
Yeah.
the doorways to be able to make it towards that. That is great.
Yeah.
Now I want to, if you will, just real quick, if you could kind of tell me a little bit. I know you've got kind of a small staff that
Mhm.
is there. Tell me about their passion towards this work. I'm just kind of curious about that.
Yeah. It's interesting because we all have a different lean towards something,
Mm-hmm.
but every person that we hire, almost everybody that's there was either a volunteer at some point or involved in some way. And so they came in with passion. But that idea that we are a family with the community permeates our whole staff, and it's our staff culture. An example, we had a situation the other day, and I was actually working from home that day, but I was getting pictures and updates. There was a situation with a family with the kids, and it was really upsetting, but it got resolved. And the first place that he went was the Dream Center because he wanted to see his Dream Center family. And they came in, and there was a big reunion, and everyone was happy and crying, and they were all sending me pictures. And it was just such a beautiful picture of our team, and the sacrifices that they make that nobody will ever know, all the late hours, all the second jobs for some of them, that to make ends meet. Just there's so many things that are irreplaceable and they're the things that you probably wouldn't even know that they do. And we all joke how we all have alternate jobs because there are only 7 of us. And so somebody has to, take care of the mice and plunge the toilet.
Right. Yes.
And so we all have alternate roles that we play. And it's kind of funny sometimes, but everyone just pitches in and does it and gets it done. And we all do what we're best at. But we have an incredible team. And 2 of them have actually been they were there with me almost from the beginning before we lost our building and transferred over from the church and everything. And now we have a much larger staff, but yeah.
Great. Now, real quick, in probably 30 seconds, let me know if you've got anything that's kind of upcoming in the future or maybe annual things that you do.
Yeah, we have something that's really fun. It's called the Taste of West Nashville. It's get to eat and have drinks, and it's not very expensive. And so it supports West Nashville restaurants. They get to come out and show their food and give their wares, and we get all the proceeds go back to the Dream Center. And it's in West Nashville every year at Fat Bottom Brewery, and you can find that on our website. And then our 5K is coming up February 27th. You can run virtually. You can run online. There's great prizes. So, and you run virtually. You could do it, and nobody would know if you did it or not. So you give to an organization, you say you participated, and you stay in bed. Well, it's up to you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm telling you, this is awesome. So thank you so much, TJ, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. This is definitely a worthwhile cause. And we appreciate you for tuning in today to D-ConneXion TV, and we will see you next time.